Bonjour tout le monde et bienvenue à notre rendez-vous quotidien pour la presse en ligne et direct sur EBS. Nous sommes, comme vous le savez, le mardi 27 juillet. La mauvaise nouvelle, c'est que Eric et Dana ne sont pas là. La bonne nouvelle, c'est que moi, je suis là pour gérer le press briefing. Nous avons deux annonces pour vous aujourd'hui. Et d'abord, je vais passer la parole à Tim pour une annonce sur nos investissements pour aider à limiter l'empreinte carbone de notre économie. Tim, es-tu là?
Oui, je suis là.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. Go ahead.
Thanks. Hi. Good afternoon, Stefan. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm pleased to announce today investments from the EU Innovation Fund worth 122 million euros for over 40 projects to bring low-carbon technologies to the market in energy-intensive industries, in hydrogen, energy storage, and renewable energy. The funding for these investments is generated by the auctioning of allowances under the EU emissions trading system. The beneficiaries will receive either grants or project development assistance to scale up their innovative projects and bring them to the market as soon as possible. The European Investment Bank provides the project development assistance. The projects concerned by today's announcements are located in 15 different EU member states, plus Iceland and Norway. Deploying these technologies will help the European Union to achieve its ambitious climate goals. You will find more information in our press release, and a map of the selected projects is also available online. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim. Unfortunately, we also have sad news. We have learned of the passing yesterday of a former colleague of yours, Mr. Franco Papito. On behalf of the spokesperson service, I want to offer our sincere condolences to his family and friends. Franco started his journey as a correspondent in Brussels in the 1970s and notably worked for La Repubblica for decades. He was an institution, especially for his Italian colleagues in Brussels, always guided by a pro-European spirit, and he was one of the founders of European journalism in the capital of the European Union. I'm sure that he will be remembered fondly by many of you, and he remains in the thoughts of the spokesperson service. With this, the floor is yours. I will maybe first see whether there's any questions in the room today. Yes, go ahead.
Hi. I wanted to know regarding the EU digital certificate, if you have noticed any problems in the implementation by member states, especially regarding non-resident EU citizens that are in another member state, and that they might have problems getting this certificate. For example, in Catalonia, there has been some problems regarding this. So I wanted to know if from the European Commission you have detected these problems, and if you are trying to solve it in any way.
Thank you very much. I think this would be a question for Adalbert. Adalbert, are you with us?
I am with you indeed. So I cannot tell you anything specific about issues in specific member states as regards this this particular question. But maybe as a general point, I can definitely confirm that the EU digital COVID certificates need to be issued by the member state where the vaccination was administered, or where a test has been carried out, or where the recovered person is located, depending on the type of the certificate, regardless of whether they are registered in the national systems or not. When a member state might not be in a position to offer all functionalities to persons that are not registered in the systems, for example, they might not be able to use the member state's application, they must at least be able to obtain an EU digital COVID certificate compliant paper and PDF format certificate. And of course, as always, we welcome the fact that several member states are making efforts to ensure this possibility, which is provided for in the EU digital COVID certificate regulation.
Thank you very much, Albert. Do we have any further questions regarding the digital certificates? Only raise your hands if that is the case. I don't see any hands in the room. But Virginie, tu as une question là-dessus, je pense. Vas-y.
Bonjour Stéphane. Non, c'est sur les vaccins, mais pas sur le certificat. Désolé.
Pas de problème, on va revenir là-dessus
J'y vais.
plus tard. D'abord, je vais voir s'il y a d'autres questions sur le certificat, pas dans la salle, mais et pas non plus ici sur la liste. Donc, on va prendre ta question, Virginie. Vas-y.
Alors, je m'étonne en fait de la déclaration de la présidente de ce matin qui dit, je lis votre communiqué, hein, notre objectif était de protéger 70% des adultes de l'UE avec au moins une dose en juillet. Alors moi, c'est pas que j'avais cru comprendre, c'est que je suis à peu près certaine que vous nous avez répété 15 fois que l'objectif, c'était 70% avec 2 doses. Je sais bien que l'objectif de la Commission, c'était de livrer les vaccins nécessaires pour la vaccination complète. Donc je suis un petit peu surprise et je voulais savoir si vous pensiez toujours qu'il était possible que 70% des Européens adultes soient vaccinés avec 2 doses d'ici à la fin du mois.
Merci beaucoup, Virginie. Ce que je peux dire là-dessus, c'est que nous avons atteint aujourd'hui, en effet, un moment assez important, très important même, dans notre lutte contre le virus et contre les variantes. En effet, 70% de la population adulte a reçu au moins une dose. Ça, c'est vraiment un succès. Je pense que je peux le souligner. Mais il est vrai que le travail n'est pas fini, hein. Nous devons nous assurer qu'on puisse vacciner au moins 70% de la population adulte avec les 2 doses ou une dose, ça dépend du vaccin, comme tu le sais. Et donc, ce travail pour arriver à une double vaccination, ça continue évidemment. Et déjà, il y a 2 semaines, la présidente avait annoncé que nous avions livré un nombre suffisant de doses aux différents États membres pour que les États membres puissent en effet administrer les doses reçues pour atteindre en effet 70% de vaccination de la population adulte dans le sens d'une double dose. Mais aujourd'hui, nous avons atteint ce moment très important de 70% d'au moins une dose et je pense que c'est très important de partager cette bonne nouvelle avec vous. Mais le travail continue. Merci. Avons-nous d'autres questions? Do we have any other questions on vaccines? I see that Mose has raised his hand. Mose, go ahead. Il y a un follow-up. Sorry, Mose, I will first give the floor back to Virginie. Virginie, tu as une question de follow-up.
Oui, désolé. Non, je voulais savoir s'il vous semblait possible, compte tenu de ce que vous savez des campagnes de vaccination en Europe aujourd'hui, d'atteindre le pourcentage de 70% des adultes vaccinés, complètement vaccinés à la fin juillet. Est-ce que cet objectif-là vous semble crédible?
Il y a une chose que je voudrais dire là-dessus. D'abord, je ne pense pas qu'on a dit qu'il y aura une double vaccination déjà à la fin du mois de juillet. Ce que nous avons dit, c'est qu'il y aurait suffisamment de doses livrées au cours du mois de juillet pour permettre ensuite les États membres à assurer une vaccination complète, donc 2 doses de leurs citoyens. Donc le travail continue. En termes de doses qui ont été livrées, je reconfirme ce qu'on a déjà dit à plusieurs reprises, que suffisamment de doses ont été livrées. Ce qui est important maintenant, c'est que les États membres, dès qu'ils reçoivent ces doses, puissent administrer rapidement les doses reçues pour en effet continuer ce travail très important de la vaccination. Donc le travail est en cours, mais il y a déjà suffisamment de doses qui ont été livrées. Merci. Mose, you had a question on vaccines as well, I think. It seems you have no microphone. That would be a bit difficult. No? Okay, Mose, try again later maybe, or otherwise contact us bilaterally or put your question in the chat box. We go now to Giedre Pesetskite, and I humbly apologize for my awful pronunciation.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. So I wanted to ask, like now we reached 70%, right? But I wonder what's next. Is the Commission already thinking maybe we should reach 80% or something, because Delta variant is surging and 70% won't be enough. And also taking into account the vaccine hesitancy, it's an issue that cannot be tackled so easily as deliverables that happened in the beginning of vaccination. So I wonder just what's next, what are the plans?
Thank you very much for this. What's the next step? Well, the next step is that we have to ensure 70% of adult population that has a double vaccination. EMA has already stressed several times that a double vaccination is the best way to protect ourselves against the virus, but also against the variants. So that work remains extremely crucial, extremely important, and we're all focused, I would say, on ensuring that this target can be met. You are right that vaccine hesitancy can in some cases be an important obstacle. This is something we are definitely following up clearly. We are helping member states as much as we can with communication and information campaigns, helping member states to show the importance indeed in their communication to the citizens of having double vaccination on the basis of scientific elements. Commissioner Kyriakides is, as you know, making a tour of several member states, talking to the different member states, offering political support to reach this target, to see how the Commission can help. Because, as I said in the beginning, we are really focused now on achieving double vaccination of our adult population. Thank you. Rien dans la salle. Christian, ta question concerne aussi les vaccins.
Oui, absolument. Elle concerne les vaccins et je dois dire que je suis assez perplexe sur le message qui a été délivré par Madame von der Leyen. Parce qu'en fait, c'est très bien qu'on ait 70% de la population européenne qui ait reçu une dose. Mais on sait pertinemment qu'une dose ne protège absolument pas. Et je n'arrête pas de citer le cas de Xavier Bettel, le Premier ministre du Luxembourg, qui a été hospitalisé, gravement, sérieusement touché par la Covid entre la première et la deuxième. Et donc on est en pleine vacances, on est en pleine période de mouvement. Et les gens sont en train de découvrir le pass de la vaccination, les usages qui sont faits dans les différents pays, n'y comprennent rien. Est-ce que c'est une vaccination avec une dose? Est-ce que c'est une vaccination avec 2 doses? Est-ce que c'est une vaccination avec une dose et un test PCR? Est-ce qu'un certificat de remise de la maladie? Bref, c'est un vrai casse-tête. Et commencer à annoncer en disant bravo, Inch'Allah, on est à 70%, on a fait notre boulot, ça perturbe complètement la communication. Je sais que tu es en train de le rattraper là en ce moment à la tribune, en nous expliquant qu'il faut 70%. On est à moins de 60% de la population de l'Union européenne qui a reçu les 2 doses. Et la question qu'a posée Virginie mérite une réponse. Est-ce que pour cet été, pour le 15 août, qui est le deuxième grand moment où les gens vont commencer à bouger, est-ce que vous serez parvenus à avoir les deux doses de vaccination, sachant qu'il y a des disparités énormes entre les États membres. Je veux dire, on est dans une communication qui a quelques jours. Il y a quelques jours, on était à 67% d'une dose, on est à 70%. C'est bien, ça montre une progression. Est-ce que ça mérite un tweet et se féliciter comme elle le fait? Je ne crois pas. Et c'est un vrai problème de perception pour l'opinion publique. On est en train avec ce genre de communication, on est en train de fausser tout le jeu. Je suis désolé, c'est mon sentiment et je pense que ça laisse beaucoup de gens perplexes.
Merci beaucoup, Christian. Je vais essayer de te déperplexer. D'abord, je voudrais souligner que je ne pense pas que j'attrape quelque chose, j'attrape rien du tout. Mais ce que je voudrais aussi souligner, et ça c'est quelque chose que la Commission a souligné dès le début, la lutte contre le virus, la lutte contre les variantes, ce n'est pas une lutte qui est menée en un jour. C'est une évolution, ça demande beaucoup de travail, beaucoup d'investissement de la part de tout le monde, des citoyens, des États membres de la Commission. Et nous avons franchi plusieurs étapes dans le cadre de notre lutte contre le vaccin. Et aujourd'hui, nous avons atteint une étape très importante, notamment l'étape que 70% de la population adulte a reçu au moins une dose. Nous avons toujours dit qu'il faut aller à une double vaccination. Nous l'avons dit dès le début. Nous avons dit qu'il faut arriver à ces 70% de la vaccination de la population adulte dès le début. Et donc, ce que nous avons atteint aujourd'hui, c'est une étape, mais une étape très importante. Je peux peut-être aussi dire qu'à ce stade-ci, nous avons plus que 57% de la population adulte a reçu la double vaccination. Donc, le travail continue. Tu as raison, on n'y est pas encore, mais nous avons atteint une étape très importante. Est-ce qu'on sera prêt pour le 15 août? Comme j'ai expliqué, nous avons livré suffisamment de doses à tous les États membres pour permettre aux États membres, en effet, d'assurer la vaccination de 70% de la population adulte. Donc, c'est aux États membres de faire cette administration rapidement et la Commission est là pour aider le plus possible. Merci beaucoup. Tommaso, you also have a question on vaccines, I assume. We see you. We don't hear you. Seeing is already nice, but hearing would be better. Okay. Try again later. Virginie, tu avais encore une question, je vois, aussi sur la question des vaccins?
Oui, tout à fait. J'ai deux questions de suivi par rapport à ce que tu viens de dire, ce que tu as dit. La première, c'est que tu as évoqué la date du 15 août. Je ne comprends pas pourquoi. Qu'est-ce que c'est que cette date? Est-ce qu'il y a un objectif à cette date qui m'a échappé? Et la seconde, c'est que tu n'as pas répondu à la question de la jeune femme dont j'ai oublié le nom et je m'en excuse, sur quelle est l'étape suivante. C'est-à-dire, OK, on n'est pas aux 70% de doses. On sait très bien que épidémiologiquement, ces 70% ne sont pas suffisants pour empêcher la propagation du virus et pour empêcher l'émergence éventuellement d'un nouveau variant qui pourrait être beaucoup plus dangereux que n'est l'actuel. Donc, est-ce que vous avez d'ores et déjà un nouvel objectif qui serait 80-90% de livraison? J'entends bien que les vaccinations sont faites par les États membres, parce que franchement, il y a peut-être un moment où il faut s'adapter à la situation. Donc voilà, je voulais savoir où on en était de cette réflexion au niveau de la Commission. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Virginie. Merci de me poser cette question sur le 15 août. Je n'ai pas répondu à cette question en pensant qu'il y avait une date, que c'était une date spécifique. Christian avait fait référence au 15 août et j'ai répondu, je n'ai pas une date spécifique en tête concernant notre obligation d'atteindre cet objectif. Comme j'ai dit, nous travaillons tous avec les États membres pour arriver à la double vaccination. Tu me demandes quelle est la prochaine étape? Eh bien, la prochaine étape, je pense l'avoir expliqué, c'est notamment continuer les vaccinations et assurer une double vaccination, au moins des vaccins qui exigent une double dose, ce qui n'est pas le cas pour tous les vaccins, comme tu le sais. Donc, nous continuons à travailler sur cette obligation, sur cet objectif très important avec les États membres. En ce qui concerne d'autres pourcentages, tu parles de 80%, 84%, je ne sais pas. En ce qui concerne les pourcentages requis, là, comme tu sais, nous suivons les travaux de nos collègues de l'EMA et de l'ECDC et nous continuerons à faire ça. Ils font un monitoring de l'administration des vaccins, de la situation dans les États membres et on continuera à suivre sur base de leur input. Mais à ce stade-ci, nous travaillons, comme j'ai dit, sur la vaccination de 70% de la population adulte ayant reçu une double dose. Merci. Oh là là, Virginie, tu as encore une question. Allez, une dernière fois.
Ouais, c'est la dernière. Je suis désolée, mais vous avez atteint votre objectif de livrer de quoi vacciner 70% des adultes. Tu l'as rappelé, vous l'avez atteint mi-juillet. Donc, de votre point de vue, la mission est remplie. Maintenant, il faut que les États membres vaccinent, vous les aidez politiquement en termes de communication. Ok, très bien. Mais enfin, bon, voilà. Donc, j'imagine que maintenant que vous avez atteint votre objectif de livrer suffisamment de doses pour vacciner 70% des adultes, j'imagine que vous avez peut-être un autre objectif pour livrer suffisamment de vaccins pour vacciner je ne sais quel pourcentage de la population adulte. Et j'aimerais savoir pour vous, quel est le chiffre qui fait référence dans la littérature scientifique qui permet d'avoir une immunité collective? Est-ce que c'est 90%? Est-ce que c'est 85%? Quelle référence doit-on prendre? Voilà, donc 2 questions. Et après, promis, j'arrête si tu me réponds. Hein.
Merci Virginie, je vais essayer de te répondre. Mais Nous avons déjà dans notre communication de 19 janvier, on a indiqué que nous voulions que la population adulte européenne soit vaccinée complètement et en 2 doses. Donc, ce n'est pas encore atteint cet objectif. Donc cet objectif doit encore être atteint. Mais ce que nous avons fait, ce que nous avons atteint comme milestone, je dirais, déjà il y a 2 semaines, c'est une livraison de nombre suffisant de doses pour permettre aux États membres d'atteindre l'objectif de 70% de double vaccination. Donc cet objectif n'est pas encore atteint. Il est très important qu'on continue à travailler là-dessus. Ce qu'on a atteint aujourd'hui, c'est 70% de la population adulte qui a reçu au moins une dose. En ce qui concerne des montants chiffrés, des nombres chiffrés, je ne peux pas me prononcer sur ce point-là. Comme tu sais, nous travaillons sur base de 70%, mais nous restons évidemment en contact avec nos collègues scientifiques de l'EMA et de l'ECDC pour suivre la situation de vaccin et pour adapter notre approche si cela s'avérerait nécessaire. Merci beaucoup. Maintenant, je passe la parole à David Herschenhorn. David?
Thanks, Stefan. I wonder if you could tell us, in light of how well the EU is doing on vaccination rates, if you think it is justified for the United States to maintain a travel ban on European citizens. Also, the State Department within 24 hours has issued travel warnings against going to some member states, including Spain, Portugal, and Cyprus. We know the EU was consulting, the Commission was consulting quite closely with the Americans in development of the travel certificate, the vaccine certificate, so as to be able to have interoperability there. Is there a gap somehow in communication? And again, the main question being, is it justified for them to keep these prohibitions in place?
Thank you very much, David. I will immediately pass the floor to Adalbert regarding the decision of the United States in this regard. The only thing I can say is I can only repeat what I said last week as well, that indeed we have noticed that not all member states have reached the same level of vaccination. Many member states have made very important progress. This allows us to say today, for instance, that 70% of adult population has received at least 1 dose, but we are not there yet. And in some member states, further vaccination will be extremely important, obviously, but we continue to follow this with the member states. And again, Commissioner Kyriakides has met with several member states to follow up on the situation. Maybe, Adalbert, you would like to say something on the US angle here?
Sure, absolutely. Very happy to give you an update of the state of play on this issue. We're in close contact with the US administration on the issue of safe resumption of all travel between the EU and the US. As you know, we have received reassurances that this is a high priority issue for the US administration. We are engaging in good faith with the US. Discussions are ongoing at expert level. We have a joint EU-US experts working group on travel resumption, and we will continue engaging with the US on this issue. The last meeting of the group was on the 9th of July, and we are now waiting for the US side to confirm a date for the next meeting. And our assessment remains that there is a strong case for the US to reopen to travelers from Europe for the reasons that Stefan mentioned. Generally speaking, as you know, the Council has been recommending that all EU member states lift the restriction on travel for US residents, regardless of their vaccination status, since the 18th of June, based on the available scientific evidence, and without prejudice to any possible health-related measures such as testing or quarantine where required by the EU member states. And reciprocity in general is one of the elements that member states have to take into account when deciding on lifting travel restrictions for a specific non-EU country. And it is for the Council then to consider any such reciprocity issues.
Thank you, Albert. I see, David, you have a follow-up question.
Thanks, Stefan. Just quickly, Adalbert, if you could, presuming, as you say, that the EU has been acting in good faith, would you say the same thing about your American partners? And can you say specifically if the United States officials were in touch about the latest announcements? Was there consultation, and to whom in the Commission did they speak within the last 24 to 36 hours before this latest announcement, or did they speak to anyone?
Albert?
Thank you. Thanks, David. I would have to check with our experts what exactly contacts have taken place, and also check with our delegation in Washington. So, if you allow me, I would have to come back to you on this.
Thank you very much. Maybe let's come back to questions regarding the vaccines. I see that Tommaso, you may have managed to find the right audio.
Yes, can you hear me?
We hear you all right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Apologies for before. It's just a question on the pace of vaccination, because I've seen from the ECDC numbers, ministers were much less than, which is, I mean, it is understandable, and I think it was expected. But I wonder if you have any suggestion to member states to speed up the pace of vaccination even during.
Tommaso, we are losing you. Losing you. So, the only question that I understood was: do we have any suggestions for member states to speed up vaccination? Unfortunately, I did not understand the first part of your question. You may wish to put it in the chat, or otherwise text us. Anyway, in terms of speeding up the vaccination, it's a message that we pass to all the member states, that it's very important that we have ensured the delivery of a sufficient number of vaccines. It's now indeed up to member states to administer the vaccines that they receive as quickly as possible. And as I explained, the Commission stands ready to support as much as possible. Okay. Quentin, go ahead. On vaccines, I guess.
No, are you able to hear me?
I hear you, but...
Okay, it was a follow-up to David's question, so maybe it's more for Adalbert.
Okay, let's wait a moment and we'll get back to that. I'm sorry for mixing up, otherwise the two topics. Oliver, you have a question.
Yes, hello. On vaccines, or rather on the protection of fully vaccinated people against the virus, the Centers of Disease Control several days ago, published an article by several researchers in its Emerging Infectious Diseases journal. I'm sorry, this sounds a bit obscure, but it's I think of general interest, about breakthrough infections of the Gamma variant in fully vaccinated gold miners in French Guyana. So there's a gold mine in French Guyana. All the miners there are fully vaccinated, and still the majority of them actually were infected by this Gamma variant. Unfortunately, none of them had serious symptoms, but I think about 80% of them were symptomatic. So it's not simply a matter of being infected, but they had symptoms. So these men were fully vaccinated, and still the majority of them got the vaccine. My first question is the Commission aware of this case? And if you're aware of this case, how, I mean, which decisions should member states take? Which, decisions in terms of vaccination policy, or immigration rules, or non-pharmaceutical intervention and so forth, do you consider necessary? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Oliver. The only thing that I can say on this topic is that, of course, we remain in close contact with the colleagues of the ECDC. Their job is to monitor the situation of the vaccines and of the vaccination, and all reports and studies and findings that they establish are, of course, extremely important. These studies, findings, are also used in our discussions with the member states, for instance, in the context of the Health Security Committee, where representatives of member states, Commission and agencies sit together to talk the situation, to discuss the situation, see what challenges we are facing. But I cannot say anything in particular on this specific case. But again, we remain in close contact with ECDC. Thank you. Nicola, go ahead.
I hope you can hear me now.
We hear you, yes, absolutely. We hear you, yes.
Perfect, thank you. So I would like to go back to the traveling and third country certificates, because I really
Sorry, can I interrupt you 1 second? I'm really sorry, Nicola. We'll get back to you, but we'd like to keep the topics together. I would maybe just still allow people to raise questions about the vaccines first, and then we go to the travel, all right? But I've written down your name, Nicola. We'll get back to you. David, did you have another question on vaccines? No, your hand is... Okay, no questions on the vaccines in the room. Then I would suggest we close this topic, and indeed we go to Nicola. Sorry, Nicola, but you have the floor.
Thank you. So I would like to ask about the certificates, COVID certificates, and the traveling. I will stick to Serbia, because Serbia vaccinated a lot of people. We got the certificates in Serbia. They're compatible with the EU system, as we are told, but citizens still have the problem to enter the many European countries. They're turned back at the borders, even if the certificate from Serbia is accepted, like it was situation in Greece. So how can people definitely get an EU certificate? I've heard other mentioning the paper one, etc., because what is the difference between that one and application? And basically, what people should do to avoid the single one to call the state authorities, because this is ridiculous. I mean, just to ensure that they can enter any of the state within European Union, even if they go to the border, they risk to be turned back again. So what should they do, and how can travel will be enabled for third country nationals which are vaccinated? Meantime, I mean, what can European Commission do to help it?
Thank you very much, Nicola. I'm very happy to give the floor to my smart colleague, Adalbert.
Thank you very much. I hope I can give a smart answer. The situation is as follows. As you know, it is possible, according to the Council recommendation that is in place, for people who are fully vaccinated to enter the EU for non-essential reasons. Now, when it comes to proving the vaccination status, there are essentially two routes that are possible. One is the EU digital COVID certificate, and one is a third country certificate. Now, when somebody comes to the border with a third country issued certificate, then the national authorities need to look at this documentation and assess to what extent it is completely acceptable to them, to what extent it is verifiable, credible, and corresponds to the national rules. And this is something that every member state will have to do separately. So when it comes to advice to travelers, I think the only relevant piece of advice I can give is to check with the national authorities of the member state where they will be entering the EU. When it comes to the EU digital COVID certificate, again, there are two possible routes to obtain one. One is for a traveler to ask a member state to give them an EU digital COVID certificate, which a member state can do on the basis of any proof of vaccination or test or recovery that is brought by the person. However, that again is at the discretion of that member state. And finally, there is the possibility to have an equivalence decision whereby a certificate issued by that country is recognized within the EU as a whole as equivalent to an EU digital COVID certificate. And that is very much something that is done at EU level. And as you know, or you may know, we have one such decision in place currently with Switzerland. When it comes to other countries, we are very much open to working with our partners around the world, and of course also that includes our neighborhood. We have been approached by many countries that are interested in the EU digital COVID certificate, and we're very glad about this, of course. We have a very clear process in place where we share the general information, the technical information about the EU system with our partner countries via our delegations in the countries. And once a country interested in joining our system checks those specifications and believes that it is technically ready to join, it can then send an official request to the European Commission. And we follow there an open source approach, so we have reference applications and software that is published online to facilitate implementation and rollout on the national level. And we have a large number of these requests coming from many different countries. We're holding explanatory meetings with the countries on the requests, and this work progresses. It's technical work that needs to be completed before any such equivalence decision can be taken. I hope that explains in detail.
Thank you very much, Albert, for this indeed smart answer. I see no further questions for Adalbert. Are there any questions here in the room for Adalbert? No. Okay, let's open for other topics now. Do we have it? Yes, please.
Oui, merci Philippe Renier, Journal Le Soir. J'ai une question politique étrangère. Sur le Liban, je voudrais savoir si le travail d'élaboration et d'approbation du cadre de sanctions en lien avec le blocage politique qui perdure depuis près d'un an maintenant au Liban est achevé. Et tenant compte de la déclaration d'hier sur la désignation de M. Mikati comme étant Premier ministre en charge de tenter de former un gouvernement, est-ce que cela veut dire que dans l'hypothèse où ce cadre de sanctions est adopté, qu'il ne sera en tout cas pas mis en application tant qu'on n'aura pas laissé un certain nombre de jours, de semaines ou de mois à M. Mikati la chance de former ce gouvernement? Et donc combien de temps est-ce que ça peut durer avant d'éventuellement actionner ce cadre de sanctions s'il est adopté? Merci.
Merci. Nabila.
Merci beaucoup Philippe pour ta question. Comme tu sais, les ministres des Affaires étrangères de l'Union européenne sont parvenus il y a 2 semaines uniquement à un accord pour adopter un nouveau régime de sanctions. Les travaux sont toujours en cours et l'objectif est de compléter le cadre juridique d'ici la fin du mois, donc très bientôt. Mais pour l'instant, je ne peux pas te donner jusqu'à présent une date précise parce que, bon, bien sûr, tout ce qui se passe au Conseil, on ne peut pas en parler ici. En tous les cas, c'est quelque chose qui... les discussions en cours sont des discussions, bien sûr, sur lesquelles on ne peut pas parler. Maintenant, j'aimerais te rappeler qu'aucun nom jusqu'à présent n'a été cité. Donc, il s'agit d'un cadre juridique et non pas d'une liste à ce stade. Voilà.
Merci Nabila. Follow-up.
Donc justement, est-ce que, puisque donc on salue en quelque sorte la désignation de M. Mikati qui va qui va à nouveau essayer de former un gouvernement, est-ce que ça veut dire que de toute manière ce cadre, une fois adopté, ne sera pas mis en vigueur parce qu'on lui laisse la chance de tenter de réussir? Ou bien est-ce qu'on va malgré tout peut-être viser des personnalités de la classe politique libanaise qui auparavant ont été responsables du blocage?
Je pense qu'il est très prématuré pour l'instant de parler de sanctions ou de listes parce que justement, comme tu le sais, pour tout régime de sanctions, il s'agit de mettre des listes en avant. Et ça, ce sont des discussions qui sont évidemment soit par les États membres, enfin on peut mettre avancer une liste soit par les États membres, soit par le haut représentant. Mais à ce stade, moi, je n'ai pas d'informations qui aillent dans ce sens en tous les cas. Donc je ne peux pas t'en dire plus. La déclaration sur la nomination de Najib Mikati est claire. Il est important aujourd'hui. Il est désormais d'une importance cruciale qu'un gouvernement crédible, responsable soit formé sans délai au Liban et un gouvernement qui soit en mesure de faire face aux graves crises économiques et sociales auxquelles le pays est confronté. Je pense qu'à ce stade, il est trop prématuré pour parler de liste et je ne voudrais pas en dire plus d'ici maintenant.
Merci Nabila. En effet, je pense qu'on ne pourra pas dire plus. Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres questions pour Nabila dans la salle? Non, mais je vois des questions ici virtuelles de Mindaugas Laukagalis.
Yes, hello. I would like to ask about the internal commission affairs, if that's okay. Politico says that there is a
Sorry to interrupt you.
discussion
Sorry to interrupt you. We are still in foreign affairs, so we will. I will first take questions on foreign affairs for Nabila. We'll get back to your question. Noureddin, you have a question for us on foreign affairs.
Bonjour Stéphane, bonjour Nabil. J'ai une question sur la Tunisie, si tu veux bien. 24 heures après le coup d'État constitutionnel ou bien anticonstitutionnel selon certains, le président tunisien, il n'a rien annoncé concernant le rétablissement de l'activité parlementaire. Ma question est, j'ai bien lu le communiqué du haut représentant, ma question est, l'Union européenne serait-elle prête à conditionner la poursuite de l'aide financière en faveur de la Tunisie au respect de la Constitution et de la vie des institutions constitutionnelles, à savoir le Parlement, essentiellement. Je te remercie.
Bonjour Noureddin, et encore une fois merci pour ta question. Comme tu sais et comme tu l'as dit toi-même, nous avons le haut représentant, il y a une déclaration du haut représentant au nom de l'Union européenne qui a été justement publiée ce matin même, dans lequel on explique bien où il est très clair que l'Union européenne suit avec grande attention l'évolution de la situation en Tunisie. Il est clair que dans notre déclaration, on dit bien que l'Union européenne soutient le respect à l'état de droit, la démocratie et les droits fondamentaux en tant que principes essentiels qui doivent être préservés. Il est également important que la stabilité du pays et le bon fonctionnement des institutions sont la clé pour la consolidation démocratique, et nous appelons à la reprise à la normalité des activités institutionnelles. Donc nous sommes bien conscients de la situation aussi de la pandémie fragile que subit la Tunisie, et on continuera à soutenir notre partenaire privilégié. Je pense qu'il est vraiment prématuré vu que la situation bouge énormément en Tunisie en ce moment. On suit l'évolution et je pense qu'il faut à ce stade s'arrêter à la déclaration. Je voudrais juste aussi dire que le haut représentant a également s'est entretenu avec le ministre des Affaires étrangères tunisien hier, et donc tout simplement pour dire qu'on suit l'évolution et qu'on ne peut pas à ce stade aller plus loin dans des déclarations.
Je ne sais pas s'il va pouvoir ajouter beaucoup plus. Y a-t-il encore des questions sur la Tunisie? David, you had a question?
Thanks very much, Stefan. Thanks, Nabila. I wonder if you could just walk us through, you worded this quite carefully, but the High Representative issued this statement on behalf of the EU. The extent to which member states or perm reps were consulted about this, exactly who is speaking here, and noting in the statement then that the EU is recalling its considerable support for Tunisia. Can you talk about, so at this point, just to be clear on what you're saying, the EU is monitoring, watching, but not doing anything, and would the assessment be then that the considerable support provided in the past was not enough to help preserve the one democracy that seemed to emerge from the Arab Spring? Thanks.
I'm not sure I understood your question, David, but what I can tell you is that usually a declaration on behalf of the HRVP is a declaration by 27 member states. So this means that the declaration has been consulted with the 27 member states through the council working groups. At this point, I don't know which one of them was the one through which the declaration was consulted with. But this is how a declaration usually comes. So it means that it is the HRVP talks on behalf of the 27 member states. I'm not sure I answered your question, or if you have a follow-up question to that.
Yes, David, no. Yes, go ahead.
Well, I'm happy to clarify, Nabila. I guess that this has come up in the context of other situations in the Maghreb or in the Middle East, where the EU struggles to speak on behalf of the EU and its member states. So we've seen statements, for example, in the UN Security Council by the EU ambassador on behalf of the EU, but not on behalf of the EU and its member states, drawing a distinction. So it leaves us sort of questioning who exactly has endorsed and joined in this statement. I mean, we also have a situation where, again, I respect and understand that it's summer, so we see, the statement says, on behalf of the High Representative, but oftentimes we do hear from the High Representative himself quoted, and we know that it's his voice, his words. So I guess I was trying to understand, was this a statement that was constructed in Brussels and the extent to which the capitals were consulted, involved, and had it been endorsed by the Foreign Affairs Council, by the ministers, or by perm reps? And then again, moving past that, once you can address, if you could, as specifically as you can, who has issued this statement, then getting to the substance of it, where it recalls the considerable, I think is the word, support from the EU to Tunisia. Is the assessment then that this has come up short, this support, because Tunisia is now in what appears to be a serious crisis of democracy? And the last piece being, is the EU doing anything other than watching, as we all are, with great concern? Is there any, you said you spoke with the foreign minister, is there other action happening on the ground by the EU delegation or by anyone in an effort to restore democratic functioning in the country? Thank you.
Well, again, to answer your question, it has the EU declaration that was published this morning went through the whole process, which is the normal process that we have, where the HRVP is speaking on behalf of the 27 member states, where all member states have been consulted through the formal channels through which they are always consulted. And you would have noticed that the publication was done also through the council. So this is what I can say. When it comes to what the EU is doing, I mean, you know that the EU has a privileged partnership with Tunisia. We are a strong partner of Tunisia. Having said that, the situation is unfolding. It's been 24 hours. What we're trying to do is we follow the situation. We are talking with our counterpart, and the HRVP has spoken to the foreign minister and consulting, of course, with the member states. Key principles are here. There is the respect of the rule of law and democracy and fundamental rights as essential principles that must be preserved. The stability of the country and the proper functioning of the institutions are the key democratic, and the resumption of normal institution activities are key for the EU, and this is something that we are reiterating as the EU. The HRVP also reiterated this on behalf of the 27 member states. Voilà, that's what I can say. I'm not sure I can add to this.
Thank you very much, Anita. I think this is how far we can go. Lawrence Norman, did you have a question on Tunisia? Lawrence, are you with us?
Hello, yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
We hear you. Go ahead.
Sorry, apologies. Yeah, Nabila, sorry, I just want to push a little bit more on this. I know you're constrained on how far you can go. Is there any discussion? It's hard to underestimate the importance of what's going on in Tunisia and the stakes for the EU. Is there any discussion of bringing foreign ministers in any form together on this at this point? And secondly, just to go back a little bit to the question Noureddin asked, I mean, the important line in the communique today was about the immediate re-establishment of Parliament, which is, of course, what the President has suspended. At some point in the next few days, we will know whether Parliament is being re-established and unfrozen in its activities within let me rephrase that. We will know whether the President has any intention of bringing the Parliament back anytime soon. If it becomes apparent that the President is not intending to bring Parliament back anytime soon, what consequences does that have in terms of financial aid or any kind of sanction or any kind of activity?
thanks again, Lawrence. About bringing foreign ministers together, I don't have any information going in this sense. As you see, there is a declaration on behalf of the 27 member states who are very much in line on the position of the EU regarding what happened 24 hours ago in Tunisia. I mean, apart from that, I mean, I think that you know, and you've been very old in this press room, not that you're an old person, Lawrence, but you know very well that I cannot speculate. I cannot today answer an if question as to if they do not go back, what are we going to do? I think it is extremely premature. You know very well that how things happen. We are following the situation in Tunisia. We are discussing with the Tunisians. We are discussing among member states. And if something needs to happen, it will happen. But at this point in time, there is nothing I can tell you in terms of what if the parliament doesn't go back or the institutions are not back to functioning normally.
Indeed. Thank you very much. I think you had a question on Tunisia.
Oui, toujours sur la Tunisie, puisqu'on est sur ce dossier, est-ce qu'on pourrait peut-être avoir un petit récap sur ce que l'Union européenne et ses États membres ont fait, je dirais, depuis 10 ans et le printemps arabe, et plus récemment sur le front de l'aide Covid, mais c'est peut-être plus une question pour Anna, je ne sais pas.
En effet, je pense que c'est quelque chose que Anna pourrait peut-être te donner en termes d'aide et de récap sur ce qu'on a fait en termes d'aide. Ça, c'est pas pour moi.
Is there anything you could add, Anna?
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, so many thanks for the question. Indeed, as Nabila has recalled, the EU has been concentrating on support for helping Tunisia to address the coronavirus pandemic. We have mobilized a total of 330 million euros have been made available for Tunisia. Around 260 million have already been spent. So we have been stepping up indeed our support in the health sector. We have an ongoing program that's covering support for public hospitals to purchase medical supplies and provide training and medical assistance. We have also helped to buy equipment and also material for disinfecting and sanitizing public spaces. You know that we have been also making payments for ongoing budget support programs. These have been increased, and we have been front-loading to help mobilize quickly funds, and we've disbursed to date 240 million to help Tunisia bring liquidity for the Treasury in order indeed to help them be able to address the COVID-19 pandemic. And you know that we have also approved a new 600 million low-interest loan on macro financial assistance. As regards, our broader support, that our main funding instrument until now, of course, has been the European Neighbourhood Instrument, and we have mobilized over 1.6 billion euros since 2014 in support of Tunisia. And I think that, as Nabila has already, of course, explained very well, amongst the EU Tunisia partnership priorities are, of course, promoting good governance and the rule of law. And of course, as we've said, also investing, of course, in stimulate economic growth and generating employment, in particular, of course, for the youth. And I think that it is very clear that going down the future, good governance and respect for the human rights and the rule of law will continue to be, of course, an integral part of the relationship between the EU and Tunisia.
Thank you very much for this extensive overview. Do we have any other questions on Tunisia? I don't see anything here nor in the chat box. Do we have any other questions on foreign affairs? Not in the room, not in the chat, or okay, very good. Then we open the floor to any other new topic that you may have. Yes, indeed. Mindaugas Laukagalis, and again, my apologies for the awful pronunciation of your name.
It's okay. Thank you very much for the floor. So about the teleworking in the Commission, Politico says that there is a discussion on teleworking in the Commission, and some are advocating that the Commission employees must work remotely. I think from the autumn or from the next year. I don't know about that, for at least 1 day a week. So what positive effects do you think the decision would bring, and what are the prospects in general on mandatory teleworking in the Commission? Thank you for your answer, and I will have a second question after this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Balázs, go ahead.
Thank you indeed for giving me the opportunity to take stock of where we are on this very important topic. I mean, I'm afraid I'm going to disappoint you because I'm not able to give you any figures, any ratios, any proportions as to how telework and what we call in French travail présentiel will be organized from the next month onwards. There's an ongoing reflection process. Of course, the past year has been a challenging one. About 1.5 years ago, the Commission all of a sudden, like many other public administrations or any private enterprises, all of a sudden had to move from a normal way of working to a telework arrangement. And of course, the experiences that have emerged have been extremely positive. And of course, just like any other public administrations around the world, the Commission as well is going to try to incorporate telework into the working methods, even in a post-COVID era. So there have been reflections ongoing as to the specific number of days colleagues should spend in the office and could spend at home. There are no concrete figures that I could communicate to you at this point in time, but what is important is that there will be a so-called human resources strategy that the Commission will come forward with in the course of the autumn, probably around October, and this will be a document which will basically specify more information in this regard. So for now we have to wait, but what I can confirm, of course, is that telework will be part of the package. We will embrace telework. We will give more importance to it than in the pre-COVID era, but it's not clear yet what this exact proportion and portion will be.
Thank you, Balázs. As you've heard, Mindaugas, we are working on teleworking. Mindaugas, you have a follow-up question on this?
I don't have a follow-up question, but I have another topic, if that's okay.
Let's wait a second. Because I see that Oliver raised his hand. It may be on this issue as well. Is that the case, Oliver? No, it's not. Any other questions on telework, human resources, Balázs's wide portfolio? All right, then we will open the floor to other topics. Oliver, go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, sorry. My editors work me really hard in this final week before I finally get on vacation. On Frontex, more seriously, the French Minister of Interior has asked Frontex to help with surveying the Channel coast, given the repeated numbers of people trying to cross the Channel from France to our recent former member states. And I was wondering if the Commission is worried about Frontex getting a bit overstretched. I mean, we see them now being requested to work on the Lithuanian Belarusian border. There might be problems on the Polish-Belarusian border. You never know what Lukashenko has in mind. We now have this request from France, and so forth, and so forth, and so forth. Are you confident that Frontex is properly equipped and managed to deal with these very, very different and difficult tasks? And in general, what do you do about the French request to, be active there on the Channel Coast. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Oliver. I'll have to bring in Adalbert again. Adalbert?
Thank you very much. So first, maybe about the specific issue of Frontex presence at the French-UK border. On that, any such request for support need to be first discussed bilaterally between Frontex and the requesting member state. And this is not something where the Commission has specifically a role. It's going to be for the agency to look into how to satisfy such request. This said, we are of course in constant contact with both France and Frontex, and we will discuss any such request with both parties in due time. Now, when it comes to the resources of Frontex more generally, you are right that the mandate of the agency is very broad. It covers all of the external borders of the EU, and if you look at the European Border and Coast Guard Regulation, which is the mandate of the agency, it specifies a very broad range of tasks, and of course also it refers to very considerable means that Frontex needs to have. It is going to be by far the largest EU agency by budget. The Frontex budget will continue increasing in the current MFF, and it is something that the Commission has very much supported and has worked with the co-legislators and with the member states to make sure that this is the case. And of course, the objective remains for Frontex to have 10,000 members of the standing core of the European Border and Coast Guard in order to be able to really have a very substantial presence at the European borders. This said, it is also the case that Frontex needs to rely on the ability of member states to supply personnel and means in case of request for support, and of course that remains a shared responsibility of all of the member states of the EU. These are the general elements I can provide to you, but of course if you have more specific questions about a particular request for support, you know that Frontex has a press office which is, I am sure, would be very pleased to reply to specific questions.
Thank you very much, Albert. I see here that several hands are raised. Please only keep your hands raised if you have questions on Frontex. Only keep your... no follow-up. Yes, Oliver, you have a follow-up.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the answer, Adalbert. But a political question, that's why I'm asking you as the Commission, not the Frontex press office. If you look at what the French Minister of Interior is asking for, I'm a bit perplexed because he's asking for drones, for night sight goggles, and these cameras that actually, thermal cameras or whatever. France is one of the most developed member states in Europe. It has, I think, a very well developed border force, and I would be very surprised not to find plenty of these pieces of equipment in the French border force themselves. So my question to you is, do you think that member states like France ask for this support of Frontex because they actually really have a need of drones and these things? Or do you rather think they do this for political reasons in order to draw the attention of the rest of Europe to their very specific border and migration problems? By which I mean is, if there's people crossing the channel, it's kind of a French-British problem. But if the French say, well, Frontex has to come, look, now Frontex has to be active here, they can say, well, this is a European problem, and thereby they can increase the pressure on maybe countries like Greece or Italy, where these migrants might have entered the EU in the first place. So you get my point. Are you worried that Frontex somehow becomes sort of a gimmick or a political punching ball? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Oliver. I don't think it's up to us to speculate why member states ask what they ask, which needs they have, which reasons they have to ask whatever it is they ask. but maybe Adalbert would like to jump in here.
Thanks a lot, Stefan, and thanks, Oliver, because this also allows me a little bit to clarify the overall framework in which the border management in the EU takes place. As Stefan said, I will not be able to comment on the specific request for support. This is something that needs to be discussed between the agency and France in the first instance. But if you look at the European Border and Coast Guard regulation, it describes a system of European border management which is a shared responsibility of the member states, of the national authorities, and of the European Border and Coast Guard Agency, so of Frontex. So the idea of Frontex is not that it is only an agency that is present specifically at the sections of the external border where there is a particularly acute need, but it is an agency that is supposed to support member states overall in the implementation of integrated border management. Of course, it is member states retain the primary responsibility for their sections of the EU external border. However, overall, it is a shared responsibility, and the agency is there to provide technical and operational assistance in the implementation of all these measures wherever and wherever needed. And that is also why the size of the standing corps of the European Border and Coast Guard is going to be so significant once it is fully in place. So I think there is no particular concern that Frontex should only be requested to help in particularly acute situations.
Thank you, Adalbert. That was very clear. Lawrence, you have a question for Adalbert on Frontex as well?
Yeah, just very quickly. There was a Lithuanian readout on von der Leyen's conversation with the Lithuanian PM last night on the situation with Belarus. Anything to add from your side? Any promises of extra assistance or anything from the president to the Lithuanians?
Thank you. Maybe what I could say is that indeed the president and the Lithuanian prime minister had a very constructive phone call regarding the arrival of Iraqi and Northern African migrants into Lithuania. The prime minister briefed the president on the current state of play, and the president offered her support. She asked High Representative VP Borrell and Commissioner Johansson to follow up on these matters, including with their Iraqi counterparts, especially with regard to the readmission of migrants and increasing air traffic, which is a cause of concern. The president also offered to stay in touch with the prime minister to follow the situation as it evolves. Nomi, you also have a question for Adalbert on Frontex?
Thanks. My question was answered. Thank you so much.
Perfect, Naomi. Christian, une question pour Adalbert on Frontex?
Oui. En fait, est-ce que Adalbert pourrait me donner une petite précision? On parle de 10 000 personnels pour Frontex. Je voudrais savoir où est-ce qu'on en est de ce chiffre qui est énoncé depuis maintenant près de 2 ans. Est-ce que ça s'est concrétisé? Est-ce qu'il y a déjà des unités? Est-ce qu'on a déjà renforcé? À combien on en est dans le renforcement des unités? Et j'ai une deuxième petite question. Est-ce que Frontex va pouvoir se doter d'équipements en propre? Et lesquels? Est-ce que des drones, ça fera partie des équipements dont seront dotés les gardes-côtes et les gardes-frontières qui agiront sous la casquette de Frontex? Et une troisième question, l'été a toujours été chaque année une période de forte tension en matière migratoire. On a eu les grandes crises à chaque fois pendant l'été. Et donc, côté pratique, est-ce que d'abord, vous avez des signaux qui vous montrent qu'il y a des risques et sur quelle zone? Et deux, qui sera le commissaire en charge du dossier qui sera de permanence pendant l'été? Merci.
Adalbert, could you come in a moment on the Frontex-related questions, then later do maybe the migration questions?
Bien sûr, avec plaisir. Donc pour répondre à tes questions, le déploiement du contingent permanent du Corps européen des gardes frontières et de gardes-côtes, qui est la version française de Standing Corps of the European Border and Coast Guard, a déjà commencé en début de cette année. Je n'ai pas les derniers chiffres sous la main, tu m'excuseras, il va falloir que je demande à l'agence de nous les fournir, mais si ça ne te dérange pas, je reviendrai vers toi rapidement dès qu'on a ces chiffres. Concernant l'acquisition des équipements par l'agence, oui, c'est tout à fait possible. Alors ensuite, pour le détail de ce qui est exactement prévu dans le règlement, il faudrait que je revienne aussi vers toi parce que ce sont des questions assez spécifiques. Et je te recommanderais par ailleurs de contacter aussi l'agence pour la question spécifique de savoir ce qui a déjà été acheté par l'agence. Mais en tout cas, c'est tout à fait prévu et c'est aussi une des raisons pour lesquelles Frontex a besoin d'un budget assez conséquent. Alors ensuite, concernant l'été, c'est difficile pour moi évidemment de prévoir quels seraient les éventuels défis auxquels on pourrait faire face cet été. De toute façon, les agences de l'UE sont mobilisées pour fournir l'assistance aux États membres tant que nécessaire. C'est leur tâche, parmi leurs tâches principales. Et concernant la Commission, évidemment, la Commission reste mobilisée, présente toute l'été. Alors ça ne veut pas forcément dire que nous avons un commissaire spécifiquement toujours à attendre un coup de fil ou à suivre la situation au jour le jour, mais en tout cas la Commission remplit pleinement son rôle de soutien aux États membres et de gestion des migrations au niveau européen.
Merci beaucoup. Paula Tama, also for Adalbert on this?
No, sorry, my question is for Verle, so I can just wait.
Okay, thank you. Mindaugas Laukagalis, go ahead.
Yes, hello one more time. I have a question about Lithuania and Belarus. Austrian Interior Minister criticized the EU, saying that it is sending a wrong message to Lithuania because it only funds migrant camps and gives money for the accommodation of migrants and won't help with some sort of physical barriers on the border or just simply a wall. So what is the European Commission position on a physical barrier on this particular wall with Lithuania and Belarus? Do you think it is needed? And the other question about the Iraq, because most of the migrants who are going to Lithuania at the moment are from Iraq. And Lithuanian foreign minister spoke and visited Iraq and spoke to the Iraqi FM like a week ago, I think, and the result of that was even more flights to Belarus, and that means more migrants to Lithuania. So could the European Union do something with, I don't know, Iraqi airlines or planes going to Belarus? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Adalbert, could you come in here?
Sure. So point by point, starting with the issue of the barrier along the border with Belarus. Generally speaking, the Commission supports border management in Lithuania, and that's both operationally and financially. And we're also ready to deploy further assistance as required. And in fact, we are in discussion with Lithuania about such further support. Now, we do not finance fences, but our funding supports integrated border management solutions that ensure that irregular border crossings do not go undetected and that then link to effective and fast migration management and asylum systems. Now, for more details about the idea of a barrier, that's more something I think to ask the Lithuanian authorities. Generally speaking, coming to a second point, the EU provides different sorts of assistance to Lithuania, and this corresponds to all the aspects of migration management where we have capabilities and where we have received requests from Lithuania. So just to give you a couple of examples, we have, of course, a number of Frontex officers that are currently deployed in Lithuania, and more are on the way. We currently have, I believe, 35 officers, as well as a certain number of assets. Europol is also deploying guest officers in order to look at any potential security issues that need to be tackled. And of course, the European Asylum Support Office is also helping Lithuania. There are 2 experts currently deployed, and more are being provisioned. In addition, there is in preparation a request for emergency financial assistance for approximately 10 to 12 million euro. So that's also something that we are discussing with Lithuania. And of course, as you will have seen, the Union Civil Protection Mechanism has also been activated. So this is all in addition to efforts that are more on the external affairs or diplomatic side. And on the specific question of contacts with Iraq, I would just refer you to what Stefan just explained about the phone call that took place between President von der Leyen and the Lithuanian Prime Minister. Thanks.
Indeed, thank you very much, Albert. And also add that the Civil Protection Mechanism of the European Union has also provided support to Lithuania, 12 member states participating already last week, giving through tents and so on. And indeed, during the phone call yesterday of the President, she agreed to ask the High Representative Borrell to follow up on these matters with his Iraqi counterparts in the area of air traffic, for instance, which remains an area of concern. I have Noureddin. You also have a question for us? Sorry. I'm sorry, Noureddin. First, we go back. There's a follow-up.
Yes, thank you very much. Just a little bit of context, which I know you know this context, but just to clear it out, the Lithuania-Belarus border is not only the European Union border, it's also Schengen area border and NATO border. So what the Commission think, isn't that a shame that the Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Poland don't have any physical barrier with countries which are led by, well, sometimes some experts say the dictators who are unpredictable. So, and you're saying at the same time that the European Union couldn't help with the wall. So, but maybe it should. Maybe you should like help us build some sort of physical barrier. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not sure we can add anything to that, but maybe Adelbert, you would like to come in?
I think that's correct. I don't think I can add very much. The European funds can finance what is provided for in the law, so in the specific instruments that establish the different European funds, which is something that is determined by the European Parliament and the Council. But broadly speaking, you will certainly know that we have a policy on integrated border management where we cooperate very closely with the member states as to how exactly the external borders are to be managed, and there especially Frontex has a very important role, and I am sure that the authorities of Lithuania, as well as all other member states, remain in very close dialogue with Frontex as to how best to do it. And there is in fact a process called vulnerability assessment, which structures these discussions and this cooperation. So it is not something that is not at all managed on the European level. It is, on the contrary, there is a process in place that makes it possible for all of us to cooperate very closely on this.
Thank you very much, Albert. I saw that Noureddin had posted a question in the chat box, but Nabila has already replied to that. Noureddin, do you have still a question for us then, or? Noureddin?
Stéphane, j'ai juste une petite question à Adelbert. est-ce que, pour comprendre un tout petit peu la taille du problème de ces migrants qui viennent d'Irak, il y a combien d'Irakiens? Est-ce que ce sont uniquement des Irakiens? Est-ce que, par exemple, les Afghans arrivent? Nous savons tout le contexte qu'il y a autour de l'Iran, la situation interne en Iran, la situation en Afghanistan. Mais est-ce que, pour avoir un peu une idée de la taille de ce problème auquel face les Lituaniens, quelle est la dimension du problème? Est-ce que vous avez des chiffres, même si qui ne sont pas très très à jour? Je te remercie.
Merci Noureddine. Je pense que Nabil avait déjà indiqué qu'on va vérifier, mais si Adalbert a des éléments supplémentaires.
Oui, je peux peut-être donner quelques chiffres généraux. Je pense que pour les chiffres les plus précis, le mieux serait de s'adresser évidemment aux autorités lituaniennes. Mais selon nos informations, nous avons un peu plus de 2700 personnes qui ont traversé la frontière entre la Lituanie et la Biélorussie de manière irrégulière. La majorité de ces personnes sont effectivement des Irakiens, en tout cas c'est la nationalité qu'ils déclarent, mais il y a aussi d'autres nationalités, notamment de plusieurs pays africains. Mais pour des chiffres plus précis, je suggérerais que tu t'adresses aux autorités lituaniennes. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Adalbert. Paola Tamma.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. Go ahead.
Great, thanks. My question is for Vele, and it relates to the Polish residents.
Sorry, Paola, I'm going to
recovery
interrupt
plan.
you a second. I'm sorry, we're still with Adalbert, but we'll get back to you. Sorry for that. Oliver, did you have a question on Frontex or migration or what Adalbert was just discussing? Yeah.
Hi, yes, and sorry again for coming again for the fourth time today. Is Belarus a safe third country in asylum law terms in the view of the Commission? And if so, what merit would there be in an asylum claim on EU soil by an Iraqi who enters the EU irregularly through Belarus? Thank you.
Thank you. Albert, it's your day, I think.
Thanks a lot. Welcome back, Oliver. There is no provision in EU law currently that would allow the Commission to, or give the Commission the responsibility to assess whether a specific country is a safe third country. This is an assessment that needs to be done by the member states in accordance with the Asylum Procedures Directive, and in fact it's an optional procedural device for member states. They are not obliged to use it. So I would suggest maybe that you have a look at the Asylum Procedures Directive and the specific criteria that are mentioned there. However, each assessment needs to be taken by the member states. In fact, it also needs to take into account the individual dimension in case this concept is applied. Now, when it comes to the merits of an asylum claim, I will have to give you the same answer. The very principle of asylum law is that every application is assessed individually, and the national authorities, the national determining authorities, need to look at the detail of every claim separately in order to see who qualifies for protection and who doesn't. So I would not be able to make any such determination, and even more so not in the abstract. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Adalbert. I don't see any further questions for Adalbert. So let's open the floor to other questions. I think, Paula, you had a question on the recovery plan. Is that correct?
Absolutely, thanks. My question is for Vele, and it relates to the Polish-Hungarian recovery plan. The assessment period, which has already been extended, according to my calculations, ends on the 3rd of August. Could you please confirm that? And can the Commission and the country agree on a further extension? Second, the Vice President Dombrovskis yesterday said that we might still need more time for the Polish plan, for the assessment. Could you give us some more information on why and what is the Commission still struggling with on the Polish plan? Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paula, for your questions. So there were 3 of them. I'll start with your first question. So indeed, you are correct. Poland, we have agreed with Poland an extension of the original 2-month assessment period. And that brings us to the 1st of August. The second question you had was whether any further extension to the first extension would be feasible. And I can also refer here to what Executive Vice President Dombrovskis has said yesterday. And indeed, he was very firm saying that it is not excluded that we may require still more time, but that we are not proposing a formal further extension at this stage. But just to come back to the question whether it's feasible to prolong the extension for a second time, there I can confirm that this is possible under the regulation, so more in particular under Article 19 of the RF regulation. And so more generally, why do we need more time? Well, while we cannot assess on the exact issues that we are still clarifying with Poland, as our assessment is still ongoing, I think we explained very clearly last Friday, myself and Dana, the importance and the reasons behind the need for such for any extension, for that matter, and it is really to clarify any remaining issues, to ensure that we receive, as a Commission, all the information that we need to complete our assessment against the 11 assessment criteria under the Recovery and Resilience Facility.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other questions for Veerle on this topic? Yes, please.
Oui, merci Veerle. Est-ce que la proposition annoncée hier par le commissaire Dombrovskis d'envisager une extension de l'examen du délai de 2 mois jusqu'au 30 septembre au gouvernement hongrois a-t-elle été formellement avancée? Et d'autre part, est-ce qu'il y a déjà eu une réponse de Budapest à cette suggestion? Merci.
Merci beaucoup pour votre question. Et donc effectivement, comme Dombrovskis a dit, donc le vice-président exécutif hier, donc la Commission a proposé formellement une extension de la période de l'évaluation, qui est vraiment nécessaire pour clarifier toutes les questions qui sont encore ouvertes. Et je peux vous dire aussi que la Hongrie a déjà répondu, et ceci de manière constructive, à notre proposition de prolonger ce délai d'évaluation.
Merci Veerle. Pas de questions? Oui. Pour Veerle toujours.
Désolée, oui, juste pour clarifier, elle a répondu de manière constructive, ça veut dire qu'ils ont accepté l'extension, juste pour qu'on soit sûr et qu'on ne joue pas sur les mots. Merci.
Ce que je peux vous confirmer à ce stade, c'est qu'ils ont répondu de manière constructive et qu'ils sont d'accord de travailler avec nous sur les questions qui sont encore ouvertes de façon constructive. C'est tout ce que je peux vous dire à l'instant.
Merci. Momchil, est-ce que ta question c'est pour Veerle aussi? Momchil.
Yes, it is, and it's also related to the Recovery and Resilience Plan. But about the Bulgaria's plan, we know that the Bulgaria and Netherlands are the only 2 countries that still have to submit their Recovery and Resilience Plan. But Bulgaria has submitted its draft plan. So, has the European Commission any comment or assessment of the draft until this moment?
Thank you for your question. So, as you rightly pointed out, Bulgaria has not submitted a final plan to the Commission yet, which triggers the 2-month assessment period by the Commission. But obviously we are continuing to engage and to work constructively with the Bulgarian authorities. And unfortunately, while the assessment is still ongoing, we cannot comment on any of the pending issues of the assessment of the Bulgarian plan, which is still in draft format, as I said.
Thank you. Christian Spielmann. Rebonjour. C'est pour Veerle, je suppose.
Oui, c'est bien à moi que tu... Parce que je t'ai pas entendu. En fait, j'avais deux petites questions. La première, je ne vais pas vous torturer sur la réponse de la Hongrie, mais il va falloir bien à un moment donné lancer cette période de cette extension. Donc vous attendez à quand pour le lancement de cette période? Et pour être précis, combien de pays, à part la Pologne, ont demandé à bénéficier d'une extension? Il n'y a que la Pologne ou il y a d'autres États membres qui ont demandé une extension?
Oui, donc merci pour vos deux questions, Christian. Donc, par rapport à la première question, donc, comme le vice-président exécutif a déjà annoncé hier, la Commission a proposé une extension du délai jusqu'à la fin du mois de septembre, donc jusqu'au 30 septembre à la Hongrie. Par rapport à votre deuxième question, donc il y a plusieurs États membres qui ont demandé déjà une extension du délai. Et donc, je cherche la liste ici. Si je ne le trouve pas tout de suite, je vais revenir vers vous. Mais donc, il y a, par exemple, il y a Malte, il y a la Finlande, la Pologne dont on a déjà parlé. Et voilà, si je compléterai ma réponse. Je l'ai ici, désolée. Donc voilà, maintenant je peux vous fournir la réponse complète. Donc c'est la Pologne, la Suède, Malte, la Roumanie, la Finlande et l'Estonie qui ont demandé des extensions du délai des 2 mois pour évaluer les plans de relance et de résilience.
Merci beaucoup. Et sur la Hongrie, Christian, je confirme que nous sommes dans un dialogue constructif avec la Hongrie sur cette demande d'extension. Christian, tu as un follow-up?
Oui, il faut comprendre notre embarras. C'est-à-dire, vous dites, M. Dombrovskis a proposé jusqu'au 30 septembre. Donc ça veut dire que c'est acquis et vous travaillez le dialogue constructif jusqu'au 30 septembre. Donc ça veut dire que la Hongrie a accepté et a demandé, a formalisé cette demande. C'est ça que j'arrive pas à comprendre. On reste avec quelque chose qui est très ambigu. Ils vous ont dit non, on est intéressé par ça et on vous donnera une réponse. Ou ils ont dit ok et vous êtes sur le délai du 30 septembre. C'est ça que j'arrive pas à comprendre. Mais bon, peut-être que je suis un peu obtus et qu'il n'y a que moi que ça concerne. Franchement, ça m'intrigue.
Eh ben, Christian, je ne peux que confirmer ce que je viens de dire. Nous sommes dans un dialogue constructif avec la Hongrie et on doit se limiter à ce stade-ci, sur ce point-là. Avons-nous d'autres questions pour Veerle? Do we have any other questions for Veerle? Please raise your hands. No, not in the room. Do we have any other questions today? Not in the room, not in the chat box. Then thank you very much. Stay healthy. And maybe another piece of good news that I can give you is that the next press midday briefing will be chaired by Ariana. See you later. Bye-bye.